Kono mukaonjezera ma units ndi 100 kwacha kapena kuposerapo mudzilandira ma bonus oyimbira phone, SMS kapena data pompo.
TNM, always with you.
Welcome to this week's in the news here on Zodiak. This is Sibongile Ziambo. Let's take a look at some of the main top stories in the weekend. Some MPs threatened to block passing of 2021-2022 national budget over provision on tax clearance certificate. President Chakwera appoints new commissioners for MEC in compliance with the High Court order. SCB holds awarding of fuel contracts to 3 companies following an uproar that NOCMA flouted procedures. And in business, Malawi adds 19 megawatts of electricity to the national electricity grid. Stay with us, we have these and many more. We begin from Parliament this week, where Cluster Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources on Thursday recommended additional allocation of 95 billion kwacha to ADMAC by government for maize purchase in the 2021-2022 national budget. ADMAC board chairperson Alexander Kusamba Tonzi said the organization is selling in financial difficulties, which could foil expectations of farmers to sell the produce to the grain marketer. The recommendation has been made when ADMAC officials appeared before the Committee of Parliament in the week.
As ADMAC, we get guidance, and now the people's representatives have advised us that we should still pursue the route of borrowing from foreign banks, which is actually the route that we started with. And my prayer, without actually looking at any danger, is that the committee will actually help ADMAC, because what we're reporting to the committee is what we have been doing, and where we were advised that we should no longer borrow externally, but rather we should borrow locally. May I also say that in the event that somebody comes up with a danger, it is very important for you to realize that some of these financiers are the ones who have been funding different projects in Tanzania, Angola, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Now, if there is a danger, maybe it's only Malawi that is seeing that danger, and possibly if we put our heads together, definitely we should find a solution and still borrow.
Still with Parliament, some legislators this week threatened that they will put on hold passing of the 2021-2022 national budget if the Minister of Finance does not remove from the budget a mandatory tax clearance certificate provision for elected officials. The legislators expressed their discomfort with the law during cluster committee meetings of budget and finance and public accounts, arguing it is prone to abuse and discriminatory. But MRA Commissioner General John Biswick defended the provision, saying it is only aimed at ensuring elected leaders comply with tax remittance just like any other individual. Andrew Viano filed this report. Barely a week after members of Parliament from the Budget and Finance and Public Accounts cluster committees quizzed the Secretary to Treasury on introduction of tax certificates on individuals vying for elected positions, the issue resurfaced again on Tuesday. This time around, members of the committee took turns expressing their discomfort with the arrangement to Malawi Revenue Authority, arguing it is prone to abuse. But MRA Commissioner General John Biswick says it is only aimed at ensuring that lawmakers are also tax compliant.
It's a normal requirement for those that are only employees. The employers are able to provide that at individual level. For those in business, most businesses in any case these days, especially government business, you need a tax clearance certificate before you supply to government. So what we are saying is just submit that. And in any case, who wouldn't want their lawmakers to be tax compliant? I think all of us should be proud that you are contributing to the development of this country by contributing to the taxes that are due to be paid.
Meanwhile, tax expert Kelvin Impande has thrown his weight behind the introduction of production of tax certificates, saying it will enhance remittance, which will in turn increase revenues.
Many people, MPs, councillors, they come without any tax issues, So to say they need to have certificates, I mean that they are bringing many people in the tax net. At the end of the day, they end up collecting more because if we say 193 MPs, all they are created in terms of taxes, I mean to say government is collecting more. It's going to collect more.
Malawi Revenue Authority has surpassed its target by 8%, after collecting 1.086 trillion kwacha against a projection of 1.079 trillion kwacha following enhanced measures at the border. The Malawi Economic Justice Network has tipped lawmakers to focus more on finding measures that will help grow the economy during budget meetings rather than addressing the usual funding demands. Managing Board Chairperson Bishop Martin Mtumbuka, who spoke during an analysis of 2021-2022 national budget, believes this will lead to increased citizenry's buying power, increased taxes, and eventually boost Malawi's economy.
What we also need to discuss with the members of parliament and the government in general is to find ways of increasing the GDP and per capita income. The government gets money from taxes or from partners, donors. We cannot get more from poor people. If most of the Malawians remain poor and poor and poor, you can't get tax. They don't pay tax. They buy so small things. So if we want to have a budget that is big, then the government must start, how do they turn around this economy? This is central. Otherwise, we go and ask the minister to increase the money for finance. He might say, we don't have. Key issue is we need the government to turn around the economy of this so that the majority of the people have a better and a higher buying power. If they buy more things, the government gets more tax. Or they come up with projects or companies, then the government gets more tax. But destitutes cannot buy things in big numbers that the government gets money from here.
Chairperson for the Parliamentary Social Welfare Committee, Savi Ukafafa, held the recommendation promising that they will look into the matter.
Forex reserves, the money that we normally use to import things, has been decreasing drastically because the donor funds in Malawi has also been cut. As a result, we are almost running with reserves which can only last us for less than 2 months, and that is not good for our economy. So looking into all those facts, we've been challenged also to look at the challenges with the increased debt for our country. So we need to make some sacrifices as a country to make sure that the debt doesn't keep on increasing. As such, we still feel as a country we are on a positive note, but the future looks so bleak in other areas.
Away from Parliament, the National Initiative for Civic Education NICE Trust has established an ICT platform to track incidences for intervention within the context of COVID-19 and gender-based violence. The Trust's Executive Director, Olen Malwunju, says they will be using their volunteers across the country to report cases of COVID-19 vaccine and preventive measures adherence and GBV for rapid response. NICE Trust used the same system to track cases of violence and other issues during the 2021 fresh presidential elections. Happy Njaramano sent us this report from Blantyre.
The Executive Director for the National Initiative for Civic Education, NICE Public Trust, Olen Malwunju, says the ICT platform they have established will help address issues affecting adherence to COVID-19 preventive measures and gender-based violence. Malwunju says the volunteers, which they will be using, are influential in their communities and will be catalysts for development. Malwunju said this on Tuesday during a training of the volunteers.
You are aware that government has been updating guidelines, restrictions, and so forth. So the aim will be to help government in monitoring whether all of us were adhering to those guidelines, based on those guidelines, and also the platform also will be utilized in terms of also tracking incidences of gender-based violence, violence against women and sexual violence. The aim is that once these incidences are happening in real-time situation, we'll be collecting information for intervention.
One of the volunteers, Gloria Mpepo from Chilaweni Ward in Blantyre, says she has learned how well to use the platform for the development in her community. NICE Trust used the same system to track cases of violence and other issues during the 2021 fresh presidential elections.
President Lazarus Chakwera has appointed 4 new commissioners of the Malawi Electoral Commission MEC. They are Richard Chapweteka, nominated by MCP, Francis Kasaira, Dr. Emmanuel Fabiano, and Caroline Mfune, nominated by the DPP. This followed nullification of 4 commissioners by the High Court on account that former President Peter Mutharika flouted procedures when appointing them in 2019. MEC Chairperson Dr. Chifundo Kachali explains.
That date can only be set by the office of the Chief Justice through the registrar. We informed them that we need the date. Then according to the diary of the Chief Justice, they'll give us a date. Of course, we're not entirely paralyzed because we're able to implement the decisions of the previous commission. But what this means now is that we will be properly constituted to even be able to hold the by-elections, continue with our boundary review process, and undertake any other work that requires a fully constituted commission. So it's a very welcome development. We are very delighted.
Moving on to the courts, Lilongwe Chief Resident Magistrate Pati Chirwa on Tuesday threw out an application by the state that South African witnesses in the Prophet Shepherd Bushiri's extradition case should testify virtually. He has since maintained his earlier order made in court in March this year that the witnesses must be physically present to testify. The matter has been adjourned to second week of July, but Atsopiri was at the court.
In his application, Director of Public Prosecutions, Dr. Steve Kayuni, had argued that the witnesses cannot come to Malawi because of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as some logistical challenges, which included some flight connections as well as monetary constraints. He also backed his idea or their decision as government to have the witnesses present their evidence virtually by saying that even the Chief Justice had allowed that we are living in times of COVID-19 and that things must change, and that the High Court has had cases where some cases have been heard virtually. But in his ruling, Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa said that the magistrate courts, one, do not have jurisdiction where they have unlimited powers, unlike the High Court, on how they discharge or how they administer justice. 2, he said these witnesses must come physically to Malawi because they have to take an oath in Malawi and then proceed with their evidence, and they can't take that oath outside the country through video conferencing. So he has thrown out that application and also raised some issues that their flight connections, despite the COVID-19, flight connections are taking place between countries. So that was not a very plausible reason why these witnesses should not come. So he has adjourned the case until second week of July, when these witnesses are expected to be physically present in Malawi to start giving their testimony.
Protests by disgruntled motorcycle taxi operators in Nilongo on Thursday turned ugly in Area 36 along the M1 road as police started firing tear gas to quell the situation. Communities from around the area joined the protests by pelting stones at the police, who were firing tear gas to disperse the angry crowd. The Kabaza operators are against a decision by the City Council to ban them from operating on the main roads of the city. We have this report by Chumwemwe Padata.
Area 36, where motorcycle taxi operators were involved in running battles with police. But calm has now returned as we speak. But what prompted the running battles was an exercise by police to remove all unroadworthy motorcycles from operating their businesses from the city's roads. And motorcycle taxi operators are protesting this decision to stop them from using unregistered motorcycles and operating their businesses without licenses. And some taxi operators who we talked to are complaining of exorbitant fees for registration and processing of these licenses. And what I can say now is that CAM returned in Area 36 precisely along the M1 road where the running battles were taking place.
You're watching This Week in the News on Zodiac. We still have more to come. Stand by.
Tipolole kungonjezera mayunits a TNM kuyambira 200 kwacha kapena kuposera pamenepo mutha kukhala mmodzi mwa mamilioneya mu TNM Tipolole promotion. koma mukaonjezera ma units ndi 100 kwacha kapena kuposerapo mudzilandira ma bonus oyimbira foni, SMS kapena data pompo.
TNM, always with you.
Building a successful business is not an easy task. It takes a lot of focus, hard work, persistence, determination, and sacrifices. With the passage of time, business growth is achieved to the amazement of the investor. After witnessing such growth, a strategic business person secures the business from risks that have the ability to ruin the investment. That is where the Prime Insurance Company comes in with a business insurance policy that targets small and medium enterprises. If you own a fuel service station, restaurant, lodge, clinic, farm, photography studio, retail or wholesale shop, you have an important partner in us. Without waiting for fate to strike on your investment, reach out to us at our offices in all the major cities of the country and get your business covered at affordable rates. Prime Insurance Company. We care and share in times of need.
Welcome back. The headlines as we continue with this week in the news. Some MPs threatened to block passing of 2021-2022 national budget over provision on tax clearance certificate. President Chakwera appoints new commissioners for making compliance with the High Court order. SCB holds awarding of fuel contracts to 3 companies following an uproar that NOCMA flouted procedures. And in business news, Malawi adds 19 megawatts of electricity to the national electricity grid. The Anti-Corruption Bureau disclosed on Wednesday that it has halted the awarding of procurement of fuel contracts to Lake Oil, David, and Camel Oil companies following an uproar that National Oil Company of Malawi, NOCMA, did not follow proper channels in the awarding process. SCB Director of Communications Egritandala told Zodiak they are treating investigations into the awarding of fuel contracts at NOCMA with urgency. Chombarata reports.
The Anti-Corruption Bureau, SCB, has halted NOCMA's intention to award contracts to the 3 companies in order to pave way for investigations. SCB's Director of Communications, Egritandala, told Zodiak a restriction notice has been served to NOCMA following suspicion of foul play in the awarding of the contracts.
We received complaints and we are investigating those complaints. So in order for us to investigate effectively, we issue the restriction notice. Investigations by nature are dynamic and it's difficult for us to say we are going to finish the investigation by such a date.
Human Rights Defenders Coalition, HRDC, grew frustrated in the past few days and wrote SCB to take action after revelations showed NOCMA flouted procedures in the awarding of fuel supply contracts. HRDC's chairperson, Gift Trapensi, is now pleased with SCB's decision.
We are happy that SCB has taken that action. What we want is a fair process, a process that follows the procurement procedure. We want the value for money. So we're expecting a lot from SCB, not only stopping, but as well to investigate the issue. The
investigations by SCB come amid concerns Malawi could be hit by a fuel crisis if wrangles over the procurement of fuel between NOCMA and MERA are not urgently resolved. For Zodiac, this is Chimwemwe Badata.
In business news, Malawians are expected to experience improved power supply with the commissioning of Tedzani 5 hydropower plant by President Lazarus Chakwera on Tuesday. The commissioning of hydropower plant adds to the national electricity grid 19 megawatts. The president held the country's cordial relationship with the Japanese government through Japanese International Cooperation Agency, which provided $52 million United States grant to Malawi for the power improvement project. Alex Banda has more.
The inauguration of the 19 megawatts Tedzani 4 hydropower plant by President Lazarus Chakwera is expected to reduce power challenges in the country. Speaking after opening the facility on Tuesday, an animated Chakwera hailed the cordial relationship with the government of Japan, which he described as a fantastic example of what can be achieved when two nations work together.
I announced that 1,000 megawatts would be added to the grid over the next 4 years. Today, with the commissioning of this power station, it's 19 megawatts down and 981 to go. I expect that the official Ministry of Energy will not allow us to lose this momentum or miss our targets. Our country has suffered power shortages for far too long and should not be expected to wait any longer.
The power improvement project was, however, initiated in 2017. Energy Minister Newton Kambala has disclosed that before the end of 2021, government will also commission 2 other power generation sites in Dedza and Salima to a total of 80 megawatts. Japanese ambassador to Malawi, Satoshi Iwakiri, has since committed his government support towards improving the power sector, which he observed is a benchmark for development.
Maybe we'd like to try to make another electric project here in Malawi, especially the substation in Lilongwe in the near future.
The Tedzane 4 hydropower plant stands through a $52 million Japanese International Cooperation Agency JICA grant and $4.8 million by the government of Malawi through the electricity generation company Egenco. For Zodiak in Blantyre, this is Alex Banda.
Still in business, government disclosed this week that it will fully roll out the African Continental Free Trade Area on 1st July. The AfCFTA agreement aims at facilitating easy movement of goods and services across the borders of the continent. Director of Trade in the Ministry of Trade, Clement Kumbemba, said this in Blantyre on Monday when players in the business and government officials met to review and validate a national implementation strategy that supports operation of the agreement.
Speaking during the second validation workshop of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, in Lilongwe on Wednesday, Director of Trade in the Ministry of Trade, Clement Kumbemba, emphasized that access to market being crucial to any trade, the new protocol offers Malawians a chance to have an access of over 1.2 billion people from the continent.
I think we can not pretend that we are alone. We need to get hooked to a bigger market, a market that can give opportunities to our business sector. So I think let's move in stages and say here's an opportunity for us to have a bigger market for whatever we produce in Malawi, that will have a stable market.
And Baranai Clemens Chikwene, who is Program Management Officer for the African Trade Policy Center, says the agreement is key for diversification for Malawi.
In line with the national strategy to diversify. So I see at a strategic level the AfCFTA as an instrument for diversifying the Malawian economy from tobacco.
But how ready is the private sector to embrace this new agreement? Robert Nazitwere is operations manager for AHL Commodities Exchange.
On behalf of the private sector, I would say that we are ready to implement this strategy. In this roadmap, we have been consulted from the word go, and therefore we have had our input going into the strategy.
So far, 36 African countries have ratified the AfCFTA. For Zodiac, this is Madalito Piri reporting.
Experts in the education sector say unless Africa embraces science and technology innovations, the continent will not make meaningful strides in improving education standards for regional development. Educationists from South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, and Malawi made the observation Wednesday at the start of a 3-day consultative meeting on enhancing the domestication of science, technology, and innovations underway in Lilongwe. Minister of Education Agnes Nyalonje says they will soon embark on a routine exercise reviewing and conducting a needs assessment in the sector on Malawi performance in science and technology innovations. More in this report by Chimwemwe Padata.
One of the participants at the 3-day meeting, Dr. Justina Dubaza, a Ghanaian who is also African Union Development Agency acting coordinator for AU's emerging technologies, called for a paradigm shift among African countries to stop relying on resource exports but rather start depending on knowledge exports. She believes if science, technology and innovation is embraced, Africans could start cushioning their economies by exporting their expertise to other countries.
It's not only on resources, but also the knowledge that they have, the expertise that they have. And this is what underpins development, to have a very balanced socio-economic development and inclusive growth. When you look at Africa, on the other hand, we are lagging behind when you look at science, technology and innovation, as well as our industries.
Calls for the adoption of science, technology and innovation prompted Minister of Education Agnes Nyalonje to commit that her ministry will commence a needs assessment on Malawi's performance in the adoption of innovations.
That is already starting, because you may recall that not too long ago we launched the Malawi Academy of Sciences. It is through that initiative that work has already commenced. When it comes to science, technology and innovation, you need to know what you have on the ground. What are you doing? What are you doing well? Where do you have gaps? And what more do you need to do?
The meeting is part of a series of engagements on Africa's 2063 agenda that various countries, Malawi inclusive, envision to advance development by year 2063. For Zodiak, this is Chimwemwe Badata.
That's all we have time for in this week's In the News. A reminder of some of the top stories before we leave you. Some MPs threatened to block passing of 2021-2022 national budget over provision on tax clearance certificate. President Chakwera appoints new commissioners for make in compliance with the High Court order. SCB holds awarding of fuel contracts to 3 companies following an uproar that NOCMA flouted procedures. In business news, Malawi adds 19 megawatts of electricity to the national electricity grid. Visit more on these and other stories on our website. Thank you for watching. I am Sibongile Siambo.
At Access, we believe that data is life, because we know that you want to know what's happening out there, and you also need to share what's happening with your life. You like to say hi to your friends, like what they do, and also sneak up on your experience. Access Data, the only truly affordable fast data in Malawi. Visit your nearest Access shop and enjoy the best data deals and access your world. Access your world.
A free header, goal! And it's in the back of the net from Robert Lewandowski. Because that is... We already raised the lion, remember? He's not cross.
Looking for the ultimate football experience? Front row seats to feel every emotion, to be part of the conversation and to live every banter. Looking for Ronaldo, Hazard, Sterling for massive skills and out-of-this-world moments. Looking for crystal clear picture quality, expert analysis and the full experience of the Euro 2020. Come and get it. Watch the UEFA Euro 2020 live on SuperSport from 11 June to 11 July on GoTV. Love it. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by BetKing, Playground for Kings.
mukagula ploti ku Smart Realtors Company ku Airwing kapena mpalima msewu wabunda ulilongwe mudzalandira matumba 30 a cement ndi house plan zaulere. Maploti ali pafupi ndi madzi ndi magetsi ndipo akuyambira 1.5 million kwacha yomwe mumatha kupereka kwa miyezi 10. Promotion yayamba pa 1 March mpaka na pa 30 June 2021. Smart Realtors Company ili mu Corporate Mall Building mpalima msewu wachilambula opposite Road Traffic Regional Office ku Lilongwe. Telephone 0996 744 509. Smart Realtors Company. Anything real estate we handle.